was learning how to write. I was learning the craft.
Well, shit, a lot of these stories would make really good, books.
I actually started with poetry as a kid because I like the rhyming stuff, so I used to write poems and stuff as a kid.
Where I cut my teeth and learned a lot was from reading a bunch of the screenwriting books and then writing a bunch of crappy screenplays.
Ever since I can remember writing, I started writing stories.
I think writing becomes like a drug. Like once you start, it's really hard to actually stop yourself.
Instead of going out with your friends, you're inside chasing the dragon of having breakthroughs with stories and characters and finding those perfect lines.
Use the rhythm of the story to, control how the audience sees the story.
And if you just read the words on the page, you're not engaging in it.
You can tell more of a story with a facial expression than you can from a huge word balloon taking up half the panel.
Sometimes as a writer, you wonder what the hell you're doing.
If you ever think that, am I just making, in a Kantian sense, am I just making this up? Am I really alive? Am I really experiencing? Am I just an illusion?
The problem with fiction is reality.
You do not want your reader to feel let down.
I can do this. I think I can do this, but I want to do this.
Like when you give somebody a piece of poetry, and it can be someone who hates poetry, and then they read it, and you see that light hit, and you go, oh, I did it. All right, welcome everyone to the latest edition of Writing Prose, Episode 6, Editing. I wish I could edit that part out. Anyway, so I'm here with my super awesome panel. I've got Will Perdomo. How you doing, sir?
Hey guys, thanks for having me. Welcome.
Next to him, we have Jerry for oh my gosh, I forgot your comic.
It's Evermatter.
Evermatter. There we go.
Hello, everyone.
Below him, we obviously have Mr. Death Metal Hero himself, Luke.
Hey, what up, y'all?
And on camera, if you didn't recognize who that is, we've got Mike Bancroft from The Lucent. How are you doing?
How you going, guys? It's great to be back.
Isn't it crazy? He's got a face and everything. Did you know that? I didn't know that.
I do. I've had it my whole life, although it hasn't looked like this my whole life.
You didn't
this
just
is a
come
new
out of the
development.
womb with a beard.
Be a very interesting toddler.
I feel like Luke has looked like that his whole life, though. I feel like Luke just came out of the womb and was like, fuck yeah! And his mom went, damn it.
Whoops. Yeah, it's in the genes, The Viking, the heavy metal, it's just the universe created me this way. There is no other way.
Oh, all right. So we're here for the topic of editing. And I actually hate this topic with a passion because I hate sitting down and editing my own stuff because I get so hyper focused on it that I just tear it to shreds, and then by the time I'm done with it, I'm like, this isn't even good anymore. Like, I quit. Just off to the side. Okay, let me see somebody else with their stuff and be like, oh, I can edit this for you. Just like this little bit's a little bit odd and it would be better, and like totally fine. It's mine, and I'm like, everything sucks. It's all shit.
It's easier to kill somebody else's darlings than your own.
I'll gladly kill your darling, Shae. So email it to me, and I'll just murder it.
But that's why I don't email it to you, because I don't know that I'm emotionally ready for a will edit. I feel like a will edit is going to come with like a very large glass of bourbon to just get through reading it,
and a big long list of notes that's 4 times bigger than the actual piece of work.
I give him a 4-line stanza, and he's like, all right, first off.
Be like, that wouldn't surprise.
30 pages later and be like, well, I'm just going to throw this 4-line stanza out. There is no reason.
I've gone ahead and rewritten this here for you.
Don't take this personally. I just rewrote giant
These are just suggestions.
Oh, I love it. So for the rest of the panel, what is your least favorite part about editing?
I think I'm scared. I think I'm scared to change. Like after I put something down because I've thought about it for so long, and I've sat there and I've wrote it, and at the point that I get finished, I feel like it's perfect, and then I go back to it, and I have these changes in my mind that need to be made, but at the same time, I'm kind of apprehensive about making them because I don't know. It's kind of, I'm new to this sort of, and it's kind of like, is this better? Is this not? And it helps if you have somebody to kind of bounce ideas off of. So
Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about, Shae. I love editing.
Do you really?
I adore it.
I really enjoy it. I feel like that's the time when I don't know if you've done any craft or woodworking or anything.
Yes.
You build something, and that's the time when you get to polish it and smooth it over, and you get to really see what it's going to look like at the end, and take some of those rough edges off and make it more understandable for the reader. I know. I just find that it's like seeing it all come together for me at that point. So. Yeah,
I think it's probably a little bit more of a love-hate for me, because there's sometimes where I can write something and I'll be like, all right, first draft, and I read it and I'm like, okay, cool. I don't like how this reads. I'm going to fix that. That's cool. And like those times it's fine. When I write something that's like cumbersome and then I go back to edit it, I'm like, oh, all the red. There's just, military, every time we write anything. So we call it bleeding. So after you write like an evaluation, you have to put it through so many different people and they send it back to you with blood on the page, which is just, here is all the red of what you aren't going to say and how you need to fix this. And somebody decided somewhere that one of these things that describes what you're trying to say perfectly is not going to be authorized. So find a different way to say it. And by the time you get it back, you're just like, cool. It's like I'm starting over. This is fun. And we literally spend probably 2 hours writing an evaluation, and you spend the next 2.5 weeks editing it. So I think that's probably where my hatred of editing comes from. Is professional editing is a pain in the ass. Creative editing is a little bit more fun.
Mm-hmm.
I can see, that's slightly different to how I'm picturing the editing process being from my own comic.
Well, that's I think that's an important distinction. Editing a comic, I think, is a lot more fun because you get to be creative and you're getting to create an entire world. When I'm editing the stuff that I normally edit, it's shit I already don't want to write, and then I get to just write more of it over and over again.
At the moment, I'm going through my comic right now, just looking for little innocuous bits of dialogue that they work, they're fine, but they could potentially, all they could do is even just switch out a word, or maybe just slightly change what's being said to add, a whole lot of depth to the entire story. I could actually, this doesn't need to say this right now, that he could actually be alluding to something greater in the story. And I just feel like it's adding a lot more, a lot more to the story, after it's all kind of said and done. So I'm having fun, like hunting for those little spots, like where does he, is this piece of text really, well, drop out there?
Yeah, you kind of roboted there for a little bit.
Oh, God, my internet is really dying today.
I think StreamYard.
Yeah, no, I was just saying I'm having fun hunting out these spots, to make the stories that a little bit better.
Oh, I thought you were talking about spots for Wi-Fi. I've done that before. Sorry.
It's really fun when you come up with that like perfect piece of foreshadowing for your story, or that perfect piece of dialogue that just says exactly. I mean, it's just perfect, and when you get it, but you don't always know. For me, I don't always know when I don't hit it. It's just kind of it's a work in progress, I guess, and I don't think it's ever really finished. At some point, you just got to say this is it.
That's how I feel. But at some point, you have to just once it's published, okay, that's kind of the cutoff. But right up until then, I'm in there, and I'm like, is this as good as it can be?
See, that actually kind of leads in. That actually leads into one of my least favorite things about editing. When you write something, and as an artist, this happens to me when I'm drawing shit as well. I'll do like a gesture and it'll have this awesome energy that I want to translate to the final drawing, or this thing I'll write will have this amazing energy when I first write it. I'll go back and edit it because it's a little clunky, but then I go back and I edit it too many times, and I revision the drawing too many times, and it loses that spark. It loses that fire, that energy that made it sing to begin with. That is my least favorite part of editing, when you overdo it.
and it's hard to get it back.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Once you've edited it too far, it's like you've shaved stuff away and you can't put it back.
Well, and even if so, and this is something that a lot of people think that you can do is like if you save multiple versions of it, then you just go back to a previous version. The problem is it's like a bell that's been rung. It can't be unrung because you already see the problem with it. Yep. And so the spark is died for you. And knowing if it's bad enough that the spark is going to not be there for anyone else who reads it is almost impossible. And so you end up going back to maybe I just need to rewrite it again. Like
it's an energy thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We did have a question that I think is actually a really important one from Jason. He says, how do editors know what to chop out of someone's work that isn't theirs? I would think that it'd be a delicate thing. So I
haven't edited anyone else's work, so I don't know if I'm qualified to answer that.
I have actually. I've edited a couple different people's work, and I think the biggest thing is when it's not your stuff, you are not saying that things are going to be cut or not. You are giving suggestions. And normally what I end up doing is I'll read somebody's work and say, so I kind of get where you're trying to go with it here, but I feel like this is too wordy or this isn't, it doesn't make sense in how everything is progressing. And so it needs to be reworked. I don't go beyond that. I don't go and tell them, this needs to go here and that needs to go there and this needs to be reworked and you need to add an entirely new paragraph in here. Like that is up to the writer because it's their piece. But I will come back and say, this reads weird. This is very difficult to kind of get through in your head, or it has a weird flow. It doesn't feel natural. Or it's a lot of people get in the habit of being really, really, really wordy. And so they put way too much description in and you're like, I got this a page and a half ago. Like I would cut this down.
Stop being overly verbose.
Yeah, exactly. And then you give it back to them and you say, these are my suggestions. So you go back and read it now and you decide what it is that you absolutely want to keep and what it is you want to cut. And there's certain times where they'll come back and say, I understand that for you, it seems like it's weird. I like how it's worded. And I'm like, all right, it's up to you. And then if other people read it and they'll have 4 or 5 other people read it and go, I don't really know what you mean here. And they go, well, shit, I guess I do have to read it. You're like I was trying to help, but it's, sometimes one person, I'm from, Utah and it's super sheltered. And that's been the majority of my experience growing up and everything. So I might not understand something the same way that somebody from the Bronx or somebody from, Florida or anywhere else, like somewhere, Australia, like to them, it might make perfect sense. And then it turns into do you want to put a footnote that helps explain a cultural difference, or do you want to speak to a specific audience and the rest of your audience that ends up there is just going to, hey, I'm going to Google until I figure out what the hell they mean by this.
Right. Well, what's your least favorite part of editing? Have you gone yet?
I've been trying to think about this, and I actually don't have a problem with editing whatsoever. It's actually my favorite part of writing. The part I don't like is prior to writing anything anew, right? Because that's when all the doubt and procrastination comes in, right? And the not knowing what to do. But to me,
the blank page.
Yeah, the blank page. It's not just that. It's just the procrastination, right? Because you always suffer that. But the most important part for me is the first draft, right? You sit down, you get into the flow, it gets spewed out of you.
Yeah.
It's on the page, and then you go sleep on it, or have a shower, or have a run, and you come back, and the fun part is now looking at it as a whole piece, and getting to move the Legos around, and making it work. So, for example, today I spent most of today writing a religion essay, and I'm making a very specific argument. And I don't know if I'm making sense while I'm writing it. So I'm just writing, and I get to the end. But now I can see the whole thing and say, does it hold water? And where it doesn't hold water, where do I need to add maybe more of the argument? And then where can I put brevity in? And then I can clean it up, and you basically comb it down, and it turns into this nice, brief, clean bit of work where it wasn't before. That's my favorite part.
Yeah, I have a very similar experience to you. So I will, just I mean, when I'm writing that first draft, it's just very stream of consciousness. It's all coming out. And I actually, I guess this is just the benefit of, you know, I'm working on my own book. I don't have any other writing projects or anything. I'm kind of working on my own time. I'm working well in advance. I let it sit. I let it sit for months on end most of the time. So that when I go back to it, I've actually forgotten pretty much everything I wrote. So now I'm reading it for the first time. Yeah, right. and that is how I can really see whether or not, okay, I really did not capture the voice properly, or this is all, you know, all nonsense, or that this works really well. And that's when I can, you know, start the you know, editing it down into something, just like you said, combing it into something that actually works and is cohesive.
Well, I mean, Michael,
time you got perspective.
It's just funny that you say that. If you do have the luxury to put it aside for a long period of time, I suggest doing that. If you don't have a deadline or anything, because I was looking at old scripts of mine, one in particular that I want to do for Incredible. And I remember when I was writing it, I was just banging my head against the wall. It turned into this great American novel kind of thing where it was like 400 pages of a script, a screenplay. You know, it was too long. I couldn't figure out how to make it short. But now that I reread it, after having not read it for 5 years, it all makes sense where the problems are. I could fix it today perfect and make it perfect. It just, I'm like, this is so obvious. Why didn't I see it then?
Yeah, you do get deep in it, and you can't kind of see the forest for the trees. And that's what I found. Like, that's the only way that I've really been able to move forward as a writer. Because when I started, I was, you know, going in the next day and just kind of, and it was just a non-stop process of editing. It was just non-stop, just like what you were talking about earlier, Death Metal. Just non-stop tweaking for no reason. Nothing was being helped. It was just getting messier and messier, and all that energy was just slowly being sapped out of it. So yeah, I guess I'm pretty fortunate that I'm kind of working on my own timeline here, and I can have the ability to do that. But Shae, I was the one who actually suggested editing, wasn't I, in your Twitter? Was that?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. And you know why I did it?
Huh.
I just watched a YouTube video. It's gone kind of viral. YouTube just kept recommending it to me, and it was called "How Star Wars Was Saved in the Editing Room." Has anyone seen that?
I saw that.
It was a mess. Oh man, it was a mess.
Can you believe what he had originally?
Oh yeah, it was bad. It was.
For anyone who isn't aware, if you know that classic Star Wars opening scene, it had interspliced just random moments of Luke Skywalker on Tatooine just doing nonsense things, and it just boggles the mind that, you know, that's where it started, and it just shows the power of editing a story, and, you know, making it, cutting it down, cutting away bits that aren't necessary, and
brevity.
You know,
Brevity's another
brevity
one too.
and tension and all that sort of stuff can be found in the edits, and I thought that was just a really great video, and really good for just general storytelling.
It's funny you bring. I was thinking of Star Wars this entire time. Like,
that's why I came in and said,
you know, we are all very lucky that George Lucas had other people to work with him on that initial Star Wars script, because some of that original stuff was really silly.
If I'm not
really kooky.
His wife played a big part in editing the movie.
Yeah, she won an Oscar, didn't she, for editing? Her and her team, I think. I'm pretty sure.
Film editing, like actually, like putting together an edit of the film.
Mm-hmm. I think she played a part in it. I'm not for sure. I'd have.
Yeah, she was the main. She was the main. There was 3 editors, but I mean, it wasn't just like normal film editing. They really had to kind of redo the whole story. You know, in the original Star Wars version, there was no the big attack on the Death Star. The Death Star wasn't about to blow up their base. It was just floating in space doing nothing. So they had to, you know, rejig the story they had to edit the story to put all that tension back into the story for the main climactic event. Without that, it just would have been, I mean, it would have changed the whole dynamic of the story, and it would have just been completely flat and pointless, and you know, and this sort of
at the end.
Exactly. Yeah. In Disguise says, yeah, we don't want the Lucas cut.
Right.
and as well,
says he walked away from Star Wars after the divorce for years.
Yeah, and just like what was being said earlier, if you go back and just keep re-editing and re-editing after the thing is out, you get what Lucas has done to the story since by like bringing stuff back in, putting more stuff back in that is unnecessary, and kind of slows the whole story down and changes things and everything. So yeah, it was.
Eventually breaks the entire universe.
It has for me.
Yeah.
Well, if you over edit one thing here and you're like, oh, this is great, you can possibly break something that this tied into further down your story.
Right.
I do miss
a ripple effect.
Boba Fett's Clint Eastwood voice
that
he used to have.
Yeah.
Do you remember that one?
Let's not talk about the special editions. But, like, George, why would you put Hayden Christensen in as a Force Ghost on the Blu-ray releases of the Star Wars movies? Why would you do that? Like that?
Because shut up. That's why.
No, I refuse to shut up. Because
what about the climactic moment when Vader is, struggling between watching his son get killed by his stinger, and then he just throws it a big no.
That used to be the most. It actually used to be the most powerful part of the Star Wars trilogy to me was when he just silently grabs the Emperor and throws him off.
Yeah.
And now I hate that no.
Hold on.
Just ruins it.
He actually did that because I haven't.
Yes.
I watched it the other day.
I've got like Malaysian laser discs of like the special edition where he hadn't fucked with it too much. So I haven't watched the official Blu-ray release.
I mean, as a kid, that used to kind of like get me sentimental when he was like looking at the Emperor and he's looking at his son and he has that moment where he's really deciding. You could see it through his mask and he just silently grabs him. That was powerful stuff.
You're listening to the screams and the electricity and Vader's wheezing suit because he's dying, and then the music is there, and then he just picks him up and the music builds and. Yeah. No, now it's a really Disney cartoon.
No.
See, and that's the power of editing. Like that scene, the way it was originally edited was super powerful, and it meant something. The way it's edited now doesn't mean shit. Loses the impact.
Yeah, man, it used to be my favorite scene of the trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
And
so I was gonna say when you guys were talking about kind of just writing and like spewing everything out on the page, I think that. And I don't know how the rest of you feel, but I feel like every time I sit down to write, the first little bit of whatever I write is always kind of rough and not really the voice that I want it to have. But the longer that I go and the more stuff that I put out is where I kind of find the flow and the voice and the motion and feeling that I want in whatever I'm writing. And so editing ends up being a real big part of that because I have to go back through and go, okay, so right about here is where it started to get the right feeling that I liked and what I wanted, and everything before that needs help because it's not even close to that same feeling.
Well, I think through your entire script, for me, through my entire script, there's things that I just put down, but then after some of the other guys were saying, after I put it up for a while, and that's what helps me the most is just putting it up for a while and then coming back to it. But
sleep on it.
Sleep on it, and then after I come back to it,
to work on too.
I'm like, this is not the same. You can read from page 3 or 4, and then read pages 9 and 10. Wait, this isn't even the same character. It's supposed to be the same character, but you just, especially if you put it down and come back to it, I always have to read 4 or 5 pages ahead. I can't just come back to it and start writing. I have to read 4 or 5 pages ahead, of what I've already wrote before I start writing again. It kind of gets me in the mindset, I guess.
Yeah, sure. That I think that helps.
Mm-hmm.
But it's you really got to have in order to do that, and I think that's where I'm running into issues because I don't have a whole lot of like sequential kind of story stuff. Everything I have is like short little burst things, and so I'll write 2 or 3 poems and I'll be like, well, these are all shit. And then I'll write like a 4th one and I'm like, there we go. That's a good one. And I was like, okay, do I even want to try and save those initial ones? I'll go back and read and be like, we're going to throw that first one out because that was absolute garbage.
Well, it's kind of like
the other ones.
It's kind of like drawing. Like when you draw something and then how many pages do you tear out and throw away before you hit that, you get that in that,
that's why you do warm-ups. You get a pad just for doing warm-ups. You know, have a file where you just, you know, save your warm-up stories. You know, your warm-up poems or whatever it is. You know, just throw away whatever. You might go back and look at it later and be like, huh, you know what? There is a little nugget of gold in this, you know, porous rock here. Like, you never know. You know, you might say something.
At the very least, at the very least, it's just, you know, a bit of practice and you know, a little brick in the wall to getting where you want to be. That's how I look at it. And I know exactly what you're saying with the drawing as well. And you've got to kind of know at what point do you continue sinking time into this, or do you just say, look, it's going to be better if I just get rid of everything and start all over again.
Yeah.
And I guess it's experience that you know, will be able to tell you when that moment actually is.
Yeah, well, so all of my warm up writing and like poetry and stuff, the way that I kind of have that feeling of this is definitely a warm up is when I start rhyming words with themselves, or I use the same rhyme for like 4 different stanzas, or I'll be like, and the dark days, and then like two lines down is like the dismal days, and I'm like, oh fuck, I need to where's the thesaurus? I need a different word.
Gotta change up that cadence just a little bit.
You start looking at it and you're like, how many times did I say like depression in this one? This isn't good. There's a million other ways to say that. Like happy, and then I said happy again, and then again. No, this is garbage.
Thesaurus.
Oh, let me tell you, thanks to the military, I am a fucking master at thesaurus.com. They're like, you can't say this word, and you're like, can I say honchoed? Did he honcho? Can I say he honchoed something? If you're military, you know that's not. Don't ever say honchoed, ever.
Okay. I'm not even familiar with that word.
It's because it's a shit word. It's, you know, you got like $1 million words. That's like a nickel word. Like that's like that's not the word you ever use for anything. There's always a better word than honchoed, like led or orchestrated or organized, or you didn't fucking honcho shit.
I gotcha.
I honchoed a group of people to go do stuff. No, you fucking didn't. You cleaned up garbage. Stop.
Right. Wow.
See, if you're ever stuck for better words, go talk to somebody who has to write a military performance evaluation, because we actually legitimately, almost everyone I know, we have Excel spreadsheets that are like, if this is the main word you're trying to use, here are 30 other words that you could use depending on context for that same word. And it is a living document that we pass around from base to base, from person to person, and it just gets added to. And they're like, these are ones that we got accepted in. These are ones that got struck out. And like,
why do you guys do that? Is it because they want you to use certain words, or is it just people are just basic bitches and don't know how?
There's a couple of reasons. One, the military likes to make things more difficult than they need to be. It's one of their favorite things to do.
Shocking.
They also really, really do not like you repeating words. So if I said that they led something, even if they led 30 things, they led, they orchestrated, they organized, they headed up, but you cannot say they led. Like they will kick it back and be like, find a different word, because
you get one lead, basically.
Yes. Yep. So what ends up happening is, and it turns into psychology.
Use it wisely.
So, if you think about the psychology of, if you're trying to show somebody's accomplishments, and you say they led this and they led that and they led this, after a while you're like, got it, they lead a lot of things. And so they don't want that to be the thought process when you go up for a board, because the only thing that there is to represent you is this piece of paper. So if you like things, it feels like you are a well-rounded individual, even if it's all the same fucking thing that you've done. You sound more well-rounded.
So then diversify the words used to describe what you did. That way you sound, you know.
Well, you're bringing up an interesting thing, Shae. This is something I was thinking about the other day, and I think it kind of relates to editing, is how dialogue comes across on a page as opposed to how it's spoken. Most of the time, people cuss a lot in person, and it sounds it's vulgar, but it sounds fine because it's going and going, and you're in the moment. But when you're reading it, for example, in a comic, a successive profanity like stands out, and it's all you see after a while.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's where editing comes in, because you have to fight the instinct to say, let's go natural towards what rings better to the ear when you're looking at it.
Yes.
Right.
Precisely. And that's exactly why they do it. They want, whenever something is hitting your ear, you want it to have like the verbosity that you're intending. You don't want it to get tiresome and drawn out and make you just feel like, so you're really just saying that they did one thing, but you're finding 50 ways to say that one thing, because then they get, even if outwardly they can't have a negative perception, internally they end up getting a bias against that individual. And so it's like a psychological trick that actually makes it really good when it comes to writing. And it's so bizarre. The amount of people that I know who did a full 20-year career in the military, separated, have a day job, and became writers. Like, I have a lot of writer friends who retired from the military, and it is so weird, but their stuff is actually pretty fucking decent. Like, every now and then I'm like, can you let somebody else edit your stuff though? Like, I know your wife is super great, but you need somebody who doesn't also have a day job, or who doesn't love you immensely and therefore turns a blind eye, or is used to your like vernacular and how you speak and things like. You need somebody outside of all of that who can look over your stuff and go, okay, this doesn't make any fucking sense. You need to not say it like that. But there's a lot of them that are writers, and they turn that way because we focus so much on it, specifically in the Air Force. You focus on it so much. It's insane. Yes, I realize, Luke, shut up.
I said nothing. I said
you don't have to. You giggle, you little. Oh, pain in the ass.
Wow. Listen,
I'm always. I mean,
have fun and cause chaos.
Shae is worthy of giggling at.
This is true. Laugh at me, not with me. It's fine.
I mean, you're laughing too, so I'm laughing.
I do.
And I'm laughing for you.
Made you laugh. Yeah. All right.
So here's the thing. See, this is what happens when Shae is gone for a long period of time. I don't have anyone to pick at. So I have to start picking at other people. And then I'm like, no, don't pick at the guests. It's not. But Luke's here enough. Yeah,
you know what?
I'm used to it.
What Shae is talking about, I've seen that in some comics and some books, because they describe, okay, this character has leathery skin, or they have dry skin, or they have weathered skin. And they'll describe that like 30 times. And you're like, okay, I get it. He's a rugged guy, so
this person does not moisturize. All right.
There's no exfoliating. There's no moisturizer.
Shortage of Purell.
Well, and there's another thing. So something that I noticed recently in another comic that I read that unfortunately I did not enjoy as much as I was hoping I would. When they were describing, like, they were trying to describe every time a certain power was activated. You're doing a visual medium. Mm-hmm. The best way for you to do that, show something physically on the character in the panel somehow that is going to represent that being activated. One time, describe what it is that's being activated in a bubble, and then every other time it's activated through the rest of the story, you don't have to say this is what was activated. You just show it. Mm-hmm. And that way I don't have to spend the extra time reading and going, oh, they activated it again. Well, they use this skill a lot. Like, it'll be something subconsciously that isn't going to break the flow of the action sequence in the story. You don't got to tell me 30 times that they keep using it. And why is your character using it 30 times? If your character is using it that much, maybe you need to do something different. Maybe it shouldn't be a special power, because how special could it be if you literally use it the entirety of an action sequence?
I mean, you can spam special abilities in video games. Why not in a real story?
Because it's boring in video games boring in a story.
Have you been reading Inspector Gadget books? Because Jason Baskins, he's wondering if it was Go Go Gadget Arms.
But that's the thing, is like, even as a kid, when I was watching like Inspector Gadget and he'd be like, go, go, and I was like, the only thing that ever changed was whatever came after the word gadget. And I would always be like an asshole and I was like, gadget, shoestring, gadget, like utility belt, like, so just something stupid, because it got cumbersome and it got tiresome to hear over and over and over again. But they assume that kids aren't going to give a shit, so they just keep spamming it.
Well, and also it's an earworm for kids. You know, kids run around going, go, go, gadget, whatever. You know? Shoestring or spring, you know, helicopter, like, whatever.
They had like gadget propeller.
There are a lot of holdovers in comic books, tropes, especially when related to superheroes, that have been around for a long time. And, you know, I think Shae is experiencing perhaps just that the audience has become a bit more sophisticated over the decades. And some of the stuff is starting to seem a bit sillier than it used to. I mean, there was a time and a place for a lot of that kind of, well, you know what, all that kind of stuff. And now audiences are expecting a little bit more. I think that's what you're describing there.
Yeah, well, and if we're really going to be fair, I was also one of the lamb chops play along kids that tortured my mother with the never ending song. So
who did it?
Right? I used to hide.
Why do you think I don't show that to my kids?
You know the little clothing carousels that they have in your stores? I used to hide in those and wait for my mom to pass by, and I'd be like, "This is a song that." She was like, "Where are you? I'm gonna kill you." I was just like, "Nope, I'm not saying anything." I just sit there and like wait for her to move, and then I'd move to the next one and I'd go and start singing it again until she threw a shoe or a bag or something at me, and I was like, "All right, I guess I'm done."
Terrible.
I mean, look, when you're a kid,
make your own entertainment.
Not a lot to do.
Especially kids these days locked up for months and months now in the house. Our oldest one is going back to school now tomorrow. So yeah, it's been an interesting. What is it, like 3 months now?
I will be 100% with everyone. Nothing has made me happier to not have children than looking at all of my friends that have children on social media during this entire thing. So.
Dude,
single and child free, hell yes.
I don't remember. I watched some video and it was some dad who was trying to show like, I'm doing my part and I'm trying to keep my kids sane, and then some shit happened and the camera kind of goes crazy for a second. He had to basically save his kid from almost dying, doing something stupid, and he like had him by the pants and he goes, "God bless teachers, man. Like, how the fuck do you do this? Just bless you all." And he was like, "All right."
I do have a newfound respect for the primary school teachers, that's for sure.
I feel like the Teacher Appreciation Week that I think was last week. I swear to you, teachers should have been getting like gold-plated everything. Like, just thank you. Please take them back. Don't make me homeschool anymore.
Yeah, my wife was thinking about homeschooling. Yeah, because they're trying to start to indoctrinate kids all these days with all this kind of crazy stuff. So we kind of looked into it, and now she's like, "No way, no way. We're just gonna have to deal with it as it comes, and yeah, get her out of the house."
We actually do homeschool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's she's been, this year's her first year, but you will be amazed how sophisticated it is. I was scared to start because I was scared that maybe my wife would not have the just wouldn't have the time or the energy to just keep it up constantly. But they've got programs now that's very it's very just follow the instructions, and I mean, they're great.
Yeah, I have a couple friends who homeschool, and they're like, yeah, there's a lot of like regiment to how you do it. It's not just, well, you're going to learn about what your parents understand. It's like, no, half the parents are like, I'm getting schooled too. Like, I'm going back to books and stuff, going like, oh, that's how that was. Oh, I didn't realize. Okay, I can explain that to my kid now.
It's pretty cool because I sat down one day and she was had instead of just learning Spanish or learning French like we did in high school, you just selected a elective. She had the Latin word, she had the Spanish word, the French word, and the English word all out beside each other. So she kind of learning all of it at one time. So it's
that's crazy.
It's more advanced than we were.
How old?
She's 12.
Yeah. You can learn a lot. Kind of under 15, the kids are really picking up a lot of stuff. After that age, then they start to get interested in other things, and it becomes harder and harder.
Life gets distracting after that point. Yeah.
They start to read comic books.
Shit, I've been reading comic books since I was 3, so you can't blame that on comics. Of course, me reading comics since I was 3 kind of explains a lot. So.
Yeah, I don't know if you're a good poster child for reading comics at a young age.
The hell I'm not. I'm badass.
No, that's true. You're awesome. I'm waiting for a question to come up so I can actually bring it up. But we had Leg Kick. There we go. Earlier said, I was wondering if you guys would cover the subject of the comic industry getting rid of secret identities. What do you think, and how can it affect the characters? So this kind of goes back to editing and potentially over editing. So what do you guys think about that? About getting rid of superhero secret identity?
I think it kind of removes some of the magic of superheroes, like that tension of keeping a secret identity. Because how much of the tension is just dissipated from Peter Parker's life if he doesn't have to worry about Aunt May figuring out who he is, if he doesn't have to worry about keeping his secret identity from J. Jonah Jameson or his enemies. Like, not everybody's Tony fucking Stark able to build a mansion with defenses to fight everybody off. Not everybody can keep their loved ones safe. Secret identities are necessary for superheroes because they want to keep their family safe. Also, collateral damage is really, really, really fucking expensive.
I think that it's lazy because I think that it's easy and it's exciting to write the action sequences, but then you have the ins and outs of writing the more minute little instances of where they're not acting as a superhero and they actually have the story behind the action. What's going on in their actual lives is a little bit more I think it takes a little bit more skill to write maybe than all the action. I think if you get rid of secret identity, then you can just come.
I picked up
the humanity.
Yeah.
I picked up a Spider-Man comic when I was 11. And then collected for the next about 7 years. And then on top of that, I went back and pretty much read every single Spider-Man comic ever written. Didn't get my hands on all of them, but I read at least most of them, in anthologies and whatnot. I would not be interested in reading Spider-Man without him having his secret identity. It's part of his character, and it's just sort of it just shows that that if the corporate handlers of these characters and stories can't come up with new ways to tell the character, then they should just let them pass on, and we're onto something new now. I don't see just like, we can't think of anything new now, we're just going to have him be something else because we just want to keep making money with this character.
It costs too much.
Or corporate nonsense. And what was that? Sorry,
I said it costs too much to develop a new character and market a new character.
Internet. Yeah, my internet is bugging out of me. That's why I had to turn my camera off. But yeah, I just like Spider-Man has his secret identity. That's part of his character, and I mean that's the one I know the most. But obviously, there's others. I'm not too familiar with other characters, having coming out and getting rid of their secret identities. But it's all. It's all nonsense to me.
The X-Men kind of always never really had secret identities. I mean,
but most of them couldn't. Like, it's not a matter of not wanting one. It's a matter of like, if you are all blue and disappear and reappear, like how the fuck are you going to have a secret identity for that unless you're going to create a suit?
Shi'ar Tech image inducer. Really? None of you? Holy shit. God.
Was that English?
Somebody in the chat save me. Yes, it was English. It's fucking what? You're all a bunch of I don't know, whatever. You're all a bunch of DC readers. That's what you are.
Yes.
I understand.
No, I'm not a DC reader, but I was just really Spider-Man.
Swine.
Like as a kid, and I don't know. Yeah.
No, the image inducers were a bit of tech that the X-Men got from the Shi'ar Empire when they went out into space and faced the Dark Phoenix, and it could make anybody look like whatever they wanted.
Yeah, so that's what I missed.
Co-opted them.
I didn't really get into X-Men, and I missed pretty much the whole kind of cosmic stuff until much later in life, and then it was only kind of Thanos and stuff. So I feel like I missed a whole other side of what was going on with Marvel.
Phoenix Saga, then Dark Phoenix Saga. Amazing.
I'll have to check them out.
It is classic for a reason.
So, going back to the like getting rid of the secret identities, the thing that really kind of bothers me about it is when they're super selves, they're invincible. Even when they're not invincible, they're so hard to relate to in any capacity as a reader, because they're capable of things that we would never ever be capable of. And so when they have their secret identity, that's the moment of humanization. That's the moment where we kind of get to connect with them and get that feeling of, you know, they're not this perfect thing that's up on a pedestal. Like, they have the same kind of issues. They're going through the same kind of things that we all go through. Having, you know, you have Tony Stark that is a raging alcoholic. You have Batman who's like a crazy recluse half the time and little bit up in his head a lot. Like you had people, you know, wasn't it Ant-Man that was like really abusive and stuff like that? Like they all had real world issues. They all had real world faults, and it's not sexy to write, and it's not necessarily fun or easy to write, but I think that it's important because it makes them not feel one-dimensional. It makes them feel like they're more developed. Yeah, exactly.
Like Spider-Man swinging by the 7-Eleven to pick up milk for Aunt May on the way home after, you know, fighting a villain or something, you know.
Right.
It's verisimilitude. It's what makes the story feel real. It makes the story feel lived in. You know, it feels authentic. You know, it's those little things.
Yeah. So, what, like, I haven't really been paying attention to them getting rid of the secret identities. I don't pay attention to the mainstream at all anymore.
I mean, I worked at a comic shop, so I had to.
Yeah, so I'm waiting for them to stop losing their minds, and for a lot of the really poor writers who got on as basically diversity hires, because
don't hold your breath.
I know. Or something to replace it. But like the amount of women that are writing characters now, because yay, women can write anything. If you got hired because you are a chick, I'm not interested in reading anything that you have to write. If you got hired because you are a good writer and you happen to be female, cool. That's awesome. But if it's just that because you're a girl or because you're a specific ethnicity, like, I don't care, or whatever you identify as. Like, I don't want to read the story that you're going to write. I want to read the story you're going to write because you're a good writer. And I really don't give a shit what you write or what you do or how you come about. Like, whatever, be a good writer.
What a shocking statement.
I know.
This sort of stuff was just it went unsaid because it didn't need to be said for so long, and then all of a sudden we're standing around realizing, hang on, we have to actually make this statement, and it's going to be controversial when we do.
You know, back in the day when like Ann Nesenti and Louise Simonson were writing and editing X-Men, like, it didn't cross anyone's mind that, oh my God, there are women working on this book. No, they're telling good stories. Let them tell the good fucking stories. Who cares? Like, I want to read good stories. I want to be fucking entertained. I don't care what your politics are. I don't care what plumbing you have. Can you tell me a good story? Can you entertain me? Can you remove me from the dumpster fire that is reality for 15, 20, 30 minutes? Can you do that? Fine, I'll buy your book. If not, shuffle on.
I definitely don't want to read a life biography of the author. Some of the books have become just biographies of this is my life, and you know, the food books. you know, you.
This is my life, and these are my politics.
Yeah, yeah.
Guys, I'm going to have to dip out. Shae, it's always awesome coming onto your show, and it's always great talking to you guys.
Absolutely.
we'll
we
see you
love
soon.
having you.
Good evening.
Good to see you, Michael.
Don't forget to go back
Or
to
afternoon.
Lucent. That's Mike's book. It's amazing, and I can't wait for it.
Thank you, Shae. I saw you out there tweeting it today, so thank you
Hell
very
yeah.
much.
It looks
All right, guys.
Bye,
See ya.
Mike.
Bye.
And I'm gonna gush for like 2 seconds on the Lucent.
I just
The
dropped
amount
the
of
link in the
detail that
chat.
he has put on this is insane. We were talking about some of the pictures and stuff that he has up on his campaign, and he's got this 2-page spread, right? And you see this beautiful city, and it's like a reimagined kind of London. You've got the London Eye in the background. You've got like a couple of other iconic buildings. And you see her standing on a ledge. If you look really closely, he has her reflection in the windows of the building that is on the other side of the street. It is
Nice.
fucking insane the amount of detail that this dude has put into it. So go back the Lucent. It is absolutely going to be worth it. And the little tiny teaser bit that he gives you on his campaign page about what his writing is like, I'm so happy that I backed it when I did. So anyway, that is my spiel. Thank you very much, Luke, for the link, because I am definitely out of it today. I'm not with anything. It's all kinds of crazy.
I've got this giant clipboard that I've just been saving all these different Indiegogo projects.
Nice.
That I can just, Windows key V, and then I can just bring up this clipboard and I can just drop it in. It's great.
All right, let me go back because there was another part to that question that I didn't. Yeah, so talking about the effects of the characters, I think that one of the in the chat, I think it was Jason, brought up a good point. Like if you look at Comicsgate and you look at how people in Comicsgate are worried about somebody finding out their actual names or what might happen as a result, and people, doxing and swatting and all this kind of crazy stuff. And we're just average Joes. Like we're not doing anything crazy. Like I have a YouTube, you guys write, like that's it. And most of us have a day job that we have to go to, or our day job is this, and it's extensive and takes a lot, and we're worried about it. So imagine if you were Spider-Man or you were Superman and you're out there trying to save this, giant family or whatever, and in the process maybe somebody else's house got damaged or destroyed and they couldn't afford to fix it or whatever. Now you've got somebody who probably thinks that you're not that great, or if that family or that person that you saved wronged somebody else, well, now you've sided with them, so now you're just as bad as they are. There's a lot. It's never black and white. Going in and saving somebody and helping somebody, that's never black and white. There's always somebody who's going to be able to find a way that it isn't okay that you did that.
Well, we're all the villain in somebody else's story. Where we've all done something to somebody, whether it be intentional or accidental, that has made us the villain.
Yeah, the boys dealt with that. And I hadn't read the comic, but I watched Netflix show or the.
Oh, dude, go read the comic. Do yourself a favor and go read the comic.
Yeah,
and,
I need
all the little spin-offs and whatnot. They're all great. It's Garth just being unleashed to be as fucked up and twisted as he wants with superheroes. So it's fun shit.
I'll definitely check it out.
It was literally too hardcore for Wildstorm, so they canceled the book, and then Dynamite picked it up and then continued to publish it to finish the series out. It was pretty awesome.
I have not seen it. I'm not gonna lie.
It's good.
Hey, it's good.
Will, have you ever read The Boys, Will?
Nope.
Are you awake? Okay, you are though awake. Okay. Well, I mean, it's just he's so quiet. I'm not sure. Did his internet die?
His internet isn't being nice.
No, I'm listening to you guys.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, I do have something to say about the secret identity thing, but it's a little bit more simpler than what we've been saying. But I think we've roundabout answered that question. Especially when you guys mentioned about diversity hires, for example.
Yeah.
And what Shae just said about average Joe's afraid of being doxxed, I think the secret identity thing and jettisoning it is a mention of the zeitgeist of the times, right? These comics are being written by people who are, let's face it, diversity hires. They work for the beast. They work for the machine. They have a certain political view and a social view. And to them, a lot of them, identity itself is the maximal quality of both politics and their social life. So if you're a homosexual, if you're an LGBT person, if you're black, you're Armenian, whatever, that is the absolute measure of your identity, and it should be celebrated and seen by everyone. So it doesn't make a difference to them if something, it should not be secret because that means it's being oppressed. Everyone should know what your real identity is. So you march down the street with the rainbow flag and you do what you do in your parade because identity is liberty. To the average Joe who holds views like we do, there is a repercussion to your identity being revealed, meaning you lose your job, you lose your commission maybe in the Air Force, you lose money at Patreon, so there's a causality with this with us. So we can relate to it. They can't. They don't get why you would need a secret identity. That's a form of oppression. So I think it makes sense to me why they're jettisoning that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, and I think that it kind of goes back to the idea of they're making the characters so very flat instead of making
like themselves.
Yeah,
well, they focus on superficial qualities. Yeah, go ahead, Shae.
I was gonna say instead of being more well-rounded, because I don't know that many people that I care to associate with that only have one thing that ever defines them.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do have one thing that defines you, you need to be out in the world. You need to go and experience things and get challenged by other people with differing viewpoints and figure out what other things you want to stand by, you want to represent you, because one thing should never be everything. That's how you get people that are crazy radicalized and crazy just hyper focused on one goal, and they will do that to achieve that goal. They will do whatever they have to do no matter the cost, and that's insanely dangerous because you can't have morality, you can't have good judgment if you can only see one goal and everything else is just to get to that one goal.
These people focus on superficiality, superficial traits, superficial things that define them. Is it any wonder then that they write such superficial, hollow characters? Is it any wonder why none of our superheroes ring true anymore? Because these people have no love for the history of these characters. These people have no desire to tell an epic story with these characters. They're just trying to insert superficial things that matter to them into these characters to make a point so they can grandstand. And that doesn't hold. That doesn't hold water with us. That's why these sales tank.
And it also causes them to be super offended by the fact that maybe you're looking for something deeper than those superficial qualities, and it doesn't matter to you. They can't understand why that superficial quality doesn't matter to you. It should,
right?
In their mind.
Well, and especially if that's the only thing that they identify themselves as, and that's all that they have, and then they put out a comic that's like that, and that comic doesn't sell. It's an affront to them by the vast population of society, and society is now the problem. It's like, maybe you just need to be a little bit more worldly.
Well,
go out
also
your own compound.
I think it also comes down to the fact that we're actively trying to remove the things that remind you that your categories of mind might just be your just category of mind. So, for example, them wanting to get rid of the police department in Minneapolis, right? Mm-hmm. And everybody's saying, oh, we get rid of the police, we get rid of crime, we get rid of this problem with, black people being shot. But what you're really doing is you're removing categories of reality so categories of mind can hopefully triumph. Meaning it's not anything in reality that might be affecting what's happening. It's the category of our mind. So in our mind, the police are the absolute evil sign of white supremacy. If you just remove that one thing, there's no such thing as causality. You remove that one thing, my category of mind will triumph. Well, who's going to arrest the criminals? You know what I mean? Like, there's no sense of causality anymore. These people have, that one thing is an absolute good, sexuality, or sexual liberation, and they take that as an absolute good, never seeing the dominoes that tumble on either side of sexual liberation, for example, right? It's going to have a ripple effect across society, across social relationships, across history. But they see, like you said, I'm not sure if it was Shae or Luke that just said that they look at one thing and they make that absolute good about and they don't care what's attached to it.
Yep.
Good or bad.
Well, it's like saying, I want what I want, damn the consequences, and I shouldn't have to suffer the consequences for my actions. And it's a dangerous,
precisely, no causality.
Yeah, it's a dangerous precedent to set, and it's a dangerous mindset for the world to have, because the things that we do affect other people.
It all comes back down to like what my grandmother used to say all the time: you cannot have your cake and eat it too. You get one or the other.
Yeah, and somebody just said it in the chat.
Pretty, or you can eat it.
If you don't have an idea about causality, then how can you understand how an action of a character ripples across your plot? How do you have conflict if you don't think anything the character does that's a reflection of yourself has any consequences in reality?
This is why they say continuity doesn't matter, because they don't want to have to deal with the burden of like keeping things in congruence with one another.
Well,
It's
and
just
especially
lazy.
because if you look at the direction that they're trying to move things, they are moving characters in direct opposition of where they have always sat. So they are taking characters that have always stood for a few small tenets within this diverse world that was built, and all of these emotions and feelings and thoughts that they worked through, and they've had situations that have strengthened those pillars of what make that person who they are. And they're going, well, I have a problem with those pillars, and so what I'm going to do is get rid of continuity, because then I don't ever have to address it. I don't have to figure out how somebody goes
Not
from
my
being
problem.
super into, patriotism and all that. Now all of a sudden they're talking about how every single person in America is an anarchist or should be or whatever. We're all evil. And they're like, well, that's something that, like Captain America would never actually say this. But if I don't pay attention to continuity, I can make him say whatever I want him to say, and I don't have to really worry about it.
Or you could make him a fucking Hydra agent. Thanks, Nick Spencer.
Right?
Has Punisher gone woke at all?
They're trying to take the. I saw a movement. They're trying to take the Punisher logo back from the police force. There's a
unfortunately, the creator of the Punisher kind of went on a woke tirade. It's just.
Okay, so it's Frank Castle going to be like what, a transsexual? Like, what's he going to be now? Like, I don't know. Like, what are they going to do with him?
Stop speaking things
into
existence.
Ideas.
Let me guess.
They are watching this channel. Look, I'm far too offensive.
He's going to be Al Pacino in Cruising.
Listen, it's bad enough that they turned him into Frankenstein's monster one time. It's bad enough that they killed him and then turned him into Heaven's assassin one time, which had really good Pat Lee artwork, so I didn't complain too hard. But just leave the Punisher alone. He's a dude that snapped and he kills bad people. He's like Dexter.
He's the adult Batman.
Do his purpose.
He's the mature Batman.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the biggest problem that I have, and this kind of goes back into editing too, is when you're looking at established characters, right? Mm-hmm. If you start to find issues with a character that has previously been established, whether it's in your own writing or in somebody else's, and you want to take away fundamental tenets of that character, that means you need to make a new character.
Yes.
That does not mean you take a character that already has a fan base, already has a backstory, and you just change everything that makes that character who they are. And so you can hopefully capitalize on what just, in effect, becomes a name. All that you're doing is capitalizing on an IP, a franchise, or a name. You're not capitalizing on that character. You're not doing anything to further their story. And I think that that's something that a lot more people need to be comfortable with, is that you might just need to create a new character. And yeah, it's scary. And yeah, it may not be as popular. And it might take a very long time for it to get anywhere near as popular. Or it could be a complete and utter flop. Right. But trying to capitalize on something else in hopes that you're going to somehow find success, like that success isn't yours anyway.
It's mantle jacking. They're jacking the mantle of a character and they're placing it on another character in hopes to make this character more popular as well.
Right.
You know, they're trying to get that popular, you know, I don't know, for lack of a better term, diverse character without having to put the work in to build that character up, make people love that character and appreciate that character for who that character is, not this fake mantle thrust upon them. You know, that's why female Thor didn't work. That's why Riri Williams didn't work. That's why Amadeus Cho Hulk didn't work. Nothing wrong with these characters inherently, but don't take someone else's mantle and expect the popularity to transfer over. We've got 40, 50 years with these characters, and we love these characters. These people are new. Give us stories that make us love these characters. Do something original with them. Make us enjoy them. Don't just thrust the name upon these people like, this is what you got for Thor, Captain America, Hulk, and Iron Man now.
Right. Well, and it's insulting to a fan base to take something that is already established and go, well, if I just slap this name on an entirely different character and say it's the same character, all of these lemmings are going to jump right on board and be happy. Yep. It is insulting beyond compare.
Yep.
To treat a fan base like that. And what you're actually going to do, and this is something that the mainstream is still trying to learn, what you're going to do is get what's going on now. You're going to get a group of people who are fed up with it, who are sick of all of the bullshit that you keep pushing and how you keep destroying their beloved characters, and they're going to go, we're going to do it better.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what you're getting now. You're getting people that are doing it better. You're getting people that are starting to create a real strong base of indie comics. And for all of the people out there that say there's no way you're ever going to reach Marvel or DC, where do you think they started? All of them started somewhere, and all of them started about like this. The difference is, how many years has CG been a thing? Cool. 2 years. In 2 years, we already got people that are hitting six figures with crowdfunding without it being even out of an eye. Look at Frege. Holy shit. He came out of fucking nowhere. He brings out this book. He hit six figures so quick. So quick. And we've got Will over here as the writer, right? We've got Frege doing the art.
And Centurion Luke.
Like, right? The thing is, we've got so many people who aren't humongous names. Like, Frege's done a lot of shit. He's done a whole lot of
legacy. Mm-hmm.
He's done a little bit, right? But if you're really
Renaissance Frege.
Yeah. Well, Black Flag was a niche book in the 90s.
Right.
You know, and we couldn't believe it. You know, couldn't believe it. You're right. It did come out of nowhere. We weren't expecting that at all.
Exactly, and that's the thing, is it's like this is proof in the pudding. You know, we've got people that are putting in the work, that are fighting tooth and nail. And I've seen campaigns where their first campaign made $2,000, right? Their second campaign will make $20,000. Their third campaign is making 80 plus. And these are people who literally husband and wife duos, people who are doing this on 2 or 3 other jobs, people that are, you know, fighting tooth and nail to make something. And it's because they're tired of the way that the mainstream has treated their characters. And they're not afraid to go.
It was also, Shae, the cool thing about the crowdfunding thing is that it's sort of like a class revolt too, because you can make a lot of money and not live in New York and LA and be perfectly fine doing a $10,000, $5,000 book. You know what I mean? Because you can live wherever you want and be happy and not, you know, have to have 3 other jobs if you lived in Los Angeles doing your crowdfunding for your, like you said, maybe a $5,000 or $10,000 book. You can actually live off of it anywhere you want.
It's this technology that we have now. Like, you know,
it's liberating.
I think it was Frege was talking about it earlier today on one of his streams. Like, the fact that we can be all over the country, all over the world, and get together and actually have these discussions is awesome. Like, you know, 20, 30 years ago, we didn't have this. You know, it's a phone call where we don't get to see each other. But now I'm looking at you guys. You know, it's amazing that we have this.
And there's also something. There's also something sinister you were bringing up, Shae, that you didn't quite go into, but you were kind of touching on it about them replacing these characters with these new attributes, right? And people getting pissed off and saying, "What are you doing here?" And it's just a matter of the fact that if you're part of a major corporation, you're going to get converged, right? Mm-hmm. They're all converging towards the goal of progressivism, and comics are one string of progressivism. And the way that kind of, and I hate to put it in these terms, but it's true. The way that evil functions is by consent, and the way they make you consent is to say, "Here's your favorite character," and behind it, put their little agenda behind it. And you consent to that, and they feel like they've got you, and it's even more powerful of a trap. And that's what makes it even more sinister, and it makes the fan even more pissed off because you're trying to rope me in like a child molester in a van with a little popsicle saying, "Come, little boy," and you're like, "I don't like what you're doing there, buddy."
You're like, "That looks shady, and I don't see windows there."
Yeah, that pisses you off even further. I get pissed off even further when somebody's trying to propagandize me.
Yes.
Right? Because you know that they're trying to get your consent.
Well, not only does it take creators saying, I think I can do this better, but readers are saying, you know what, there's got to be something better out there than what the mainstream is offering us. So none of these books would make the money that they're making without readers being fed up with what they're getting from the mainstream. So they're not, they can try to rope people in, Michael, but Will, but but people are saying they're rejecting it.
Well, and I know, like, from my perspective, if you ever want me to never read your book, ever, talk to me like I'm a poor little girl that you need to pat on the head. And that's essentially what mainstream has been doing for a very long time at this point, where it's, "Oh, sweet little girl, you don't know any better, so let me give you this, and this is going to be right up your alley and something that you're going to love, so just shut up and read it." And it turns into,
you didn't buy Goddess Mode? You didn't love Zoe Quinn?
No. And see, it turns me from passively I'm just not going to read your book. I'm going to go do my own thing. It'll be fine. To, you have now weaponized me against you, because that kind of disrespect and that kind of I know better and I know what's better for you kind of attitude, that is a surefire way to get fiery women who have very strong opinions to just mobilize against whatever your agenda is. These kinds of shows, doing this kind of a channel, I might have done it before just for fun. And I did actually have way back in oh gosh, it was so long ago, 2010 maybe. I think I had a channel and I did game reviews and things like that. And it didn't last super long because this kind of thing wasn't really there. People weren't, "Oh, sweet little girl, go sit down in the corner, let the men talk," kind of thing. But in comics, that came out hard, and it came out from women writers telling women like me that we don't know what the hell we want. So let's sit down and shut up while they tell us what they know better. And it has
what they're accusing men of doing the whole time.
The audacity of them bitches.
The same thing that they accuse men of doing. The only people I have ever had do this to me have been other women who are radicalized into this feminist new wave ideal that has nothing to do with equality. It has to do with superiority. And I am not going to pick that up ever. And if you start to tell me, "Sweet little girl, you just don't know," oh, honey, you don't know who you just pissed off beyond compare.
They're the Karens of comic books.
Yes.
Oh, the Karens. Yes. The Karens of comics. The Karens are maturing. They're coming out of their cocoons and they're coming at us.
Oh gosh, you know what's terrifying about that?
Time to bust out the flamethrower.
Hate speech.
What?
I said, watch this stream get struck for hate speech.
Because we're mocking the Karens. Because the Karen went and flagged us. Because the Karen flagged us.
Yeah, probably. That's
I'm
probably
gonna speak to your manager now.
Hey, I got shit from a Karen the other day, so
Yeah, the only women that
he
I
went and told on me, man, to my teacher. My teacher had to give me a mouthful that I'm behaving too much like a man.
Ugh.
He literally said that. He's like, "You're behaving too much like a man."
Yeah, because that's terrible.
That's what I get a lot.
Okay.
Brainwashed by the patriarchy.
Because she had to leave because I was too aggressive in our debate.
Yeah, I remember your story.
Yeah.
Well, Frankie! Hey, Frankie, Karen is not single. Stay away, Frankie. Stay away from Karen.
Who?
Pretty much.
Oh, duh. Like, what was like another planet? Karen.
Any Karen. If it's a Karen, run away.
Never met a Karen. I don't think I've ever actually met a Karen.
I have.
Like who's actually been named Karen and acted like a Karen.
Oh no, not acted like. I've met a girl named Karen and she was lovely and normal and had a good head on her shoulders and it's totally fine.
Man, Eugene is full of Karens. It's Karen Central. Lots of Karens. They look at you. They look at me with a side eye because I don't wear the mask. It's like, you don't have the mask.
Oh yeah.
Where's the mask? I'm like,
I wear the mask just for fucking fun now.
I wear the mask.
Like,
I custom made.
I'm not sure I want you to finish that sentence, actually. Yeah.
The mask has become a symbol of your manhood. It's like, I don't have no damn mask.
I walked in the store the other day. I was carrying it, and the lady there was like, "Give me the stink eye." She's like,
"Yeah, they do that."
Listen, I kind of dig looking like I'm walking out of Mad Max going into fucking Publix. People look at me like, "What the fuck?"
Oh no, it's all still mandatory here. In order for you to enter any establishment,
you'll get shot if you don't.
You get asked to leave because the business will get fined $5,000.
Where? Oh,
this,
yeah.
This is the South. We do what we want down here. It's a little bit more loose. We just, the heat does things to people's brains. We just kind of roll with it. There's a lot of dead people in the ground. That whatever it is comes up through the ground.
Yeah.
It's the South.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm in Eugene. Too much meth. Too many meth goblins in Eugene.
Yeah, well, we got a meth problem here too. I don't know why.
Dude, I think it's just in.
Well, our meth heads are better than your meth heads.
They're a fucking meth head. Is there a degree? Like,
well, the meth heads in Salt Lake will still help you take your groceries in. You'll just have less of them when you actually go and check in.
Right. Well, it depends. Do your meth heads commit?
It'll be fine.
Commit assaults or do property crimes? See, our meth heads do property crimes.
A little of both. I mean,
see, we don't get any physical. They don't attack our bodies; they just attack our property.
Oh, okay.
I mean, our
depends on what you got on you.
Our meth heads will go from being helpful one moment to trying to eat your face like they're on bath salts, but they're fully aware of what they're doing.
Well, you have to be careful, Shae. If you're carrying a Little Caesars pizza, they'll come a calling. So you have to be very careful.
Domino's, it'll be fine. It's natural.
So yeah, Little Caesars, they come a calling.
Our high school kids sell meth as a fundraiser for school. They're at the Dollar General around here.
Hey, okay, so this is horribly off topic, but I'm going to tell you.
So editing meth. How do we edit meth? How do we cut it?
How do we edit meth? We go in after and cut all of this conversation out so Sai doesn't yell at me later.
I still have to meet this person, so.
I know. October.
I didn't bring up meth. Just saying.
I didn't either. I don't know. I'm blaming Will. Will's the one that brought up meth.
I'm a weird dude. I mean, I'm a very weird guy. Haven't you guys figured this out?
No.
I'll be quiet for long periods of time, and then I'll start talking about meth. I've just been thinking about meth this whole time while you guys were talking, like meth.
How can you cook meth? What ways can you make meth? So
a meth sandwich.
We actually had, when I was in training, we had a group of airmen who had in their wall bunkers meth labs.
See, I knew it.
Because a wall locker isn't an inspectable item. Yes, it absolutely is. So they had meth labs that were built up in there, and when they were being brought up on charges and everything for it, All of them got P tested randomly for the next like year. And they were
With
like,
good reason.
They were like, we never did the meth. We were just selling it. It was opportunity. They're like, well, who are you selling it to? They go, the Marines at the next barracks over. I was like, oh my God.
They were the meth heads.
All of the Marines ended up getting P tested for the next year too. And it was like 2 of them that were actually buying, but there was like 4 of them that were supplying.
They're combat stims.
It was
need
really
those.
interesting. Well, the thing that
We're
was
a
funny,
hop, skip, and a jump away from that shit. You be quiet.
the thing that was funny is everybody kind of credited the Air Force with, they were like, well, they did say the Air Force had the smart kids, and they were the ones that figured out how to make meth while in training. So
Sounds
I guess
about right.
that kind of holds water. I was like, that's super fucked. Anyway, back to editing.
Back to editing.
Supposed to be talking about editing, talking about meth.
When you're editing your police report or your subpoena,
No.
where do we start?
No. Gonna go live off grid. I don't care anymore. Done. So back to editing. Shae.
Shae.
She's like, nope, no, I can't hear you guys. I'm cut off. You guys are gonna have to fend for yourselves on this stream. See, she's totally ignoring us.
Yeah, she's the host, but she's ignoring her guests. So I guess we can say whatever we want about the host, right?
I figured you'd probably go there. What is the most poorly edited thing that you have ever encountered? Oh, there she goes. What is the most poorly edited thing you've ever encountered, story-wise, like comic, novel, whatever?
You shot, man. That I thought was just unreadable.
Just, you could tell that the editor either took a nap while doing their job, or it just didn't have an editor.
I mean, the only thing, I'm sorry, like I can't think about anything literary right now. Just a movie I'm thinking about, which is the Nightmare on Elm Street remake. That could have used some fine editing.
That. I have a tendency to avoid remakes.
It was just on TV, and I was watching it, just going, "Wow, this is really poorly edited."
Right.
You know, yeah. I'm trying to think of something literary that I read and go, "Whoa, this needs a red pen." Take it into it.
So I don't have anything. I don't have anything that's like well known, but this is one of the stories I had. I had a friend who was a dependent of somebody that I served with, and she was like, "Yeah, I've started writing. I'd really love to hear like your thoughts and everything." I got 3 chapters into her book and had to stop because aside from just an absolute plethora of like spelling and grammatical errors all throughout this book, which just she self-published through Amazon, and so it looked really legit, and then you get it and you're like, that's the wrong kind of effect that you just said there. Yeah. You're like, oh, who is your editor? Oh, I edited it myself. Never edit your own work. Never be the only editor for your work. You always need a second and third and fourth set of eyes on anything that you write, because you know what you're trying to say and you're going to read with that context most of the time. If you don't have other people read it, the likelihood you're going to catch a lot of your mistakes is really bad. But she also had logical issues within her story and how things were kind of planned out and how things worked. And like I said, I got 3 chapters in and I just put it down and I was like, oh, I don't know what to say to you, so I'm just not going to say anything until you ask. And she never asked, so I never said anything. It was just like, I don't want to crush your dreams.
Well, I mean, Shae, that's an interesting thing you bring up, because when we were talking earlier about methods of editing, what I like to do when I'm editing somebody else's stuff, it's the same thing I do in a debate. Whenever I'm in a debate, I always restate the case back to the person I'm debating and say, okay, this is what you said. And I say, is that correct? Right. And they'll say yes, and then I can move on from the premise, right? So they don't have to stop me and say I didn't say that, right?
Right.
It's the same thing when I'm reading somebody's fiction. I'll read it, and then I'll talk to the person writing me an email and say, okay, this is the plot. Boom. And I'll say, is that the plot? And if they say no, then something's in your story that's making me think that.
Right.
You know what I mean? So there's something wrong. Right. Or I don't understand it, but here's roughly what I think the story is. And they go, no, that's totally not it. Then I only read what you wrote. So something you wrote is making me think that way.
Right.
Right.
And I think that's very helpful to go about it that way.
Yeah, no,
because
that's
now it becomes a mechanical thing from then on.
Right.
Right.
True. Yeah, take the emotion out of it. Absolutely. Yeah.
I just think that it's reading your own work, it's really hard to divorce yourself from what you know is supposed to be there. And so usually, and what I normally do when I write something is I find somebody who I think is really pedantic. Somebody who I've got like 3 or 4 different types that I tend to send stuff to. Yes, well, you are the reason I haven't sent anything to you yet, is because I'm trying to go through
very
the nicer
pedantic.
ones. I'm going through the nicer ones before I go through the super
may
mean.
not be something to be proud of, but
Oh man, I'll bog you down in the weeds. I'm like a Russian man. I'll bog you down.
Shit.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yep.
Well, I try to find somebody who's pedantic. I usually try to find somebody who I don't think, like when I'm talking about something that's emotional or something that is like my poetry and stuff like that, I try to find somebody who I don't think normally would read something like that or normally would enjoy feeling that kind of emotion. And then I usually find somebody who it's right up their alley, and I send it out, and I just kind of go, okay, I want your feedback. And then when people come back, I get to see what they say. So when I start getting feedback from people and I've got somebody who loves it, and it's normally something that they would read, and then somebody who hates it, like normally hates that kind of writing, and they're both saying, wow, this is actually good. And I'm like, oh shit, it might be good. Damn. Okay. Now I got to send it to the pedantic one and make sure that it actually is good and that they're not going to find some crazy fucking hole that I didn't see.
I always every time I give somebody my writing, I always ask them the same question, which is, say the plot back to me. And if they can't, then I screwed up on something.
Mm-hmm.
If you're like, I don't know, this guy went here and he jumped off a cliff, and then for some weird reason, a bunch of people died, and that's it. Then okay, I got problems.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like, oh well, F you. You don't get my brilliance, because that's another thing about editing. You have to be careful about editing yourself. Is a tendency to show off. And
because we all think we're fucking brilliant.
Well, yeah, we do, and that's something that university actually came in handy for, which was, you know, I can get pretty flowery with my language, and you could show off in your essays because you want to show off to the teacher. And what I really learned in school was how to be elegant but very brief. So say
not busting out them $25 words.
Exactly. You know, 2-for-1 words.
Right.
That's actually the key. 2-for-1 words is better. Can you say 3 things in 1 word?
Brevity.
You know, because you're going to get in situations where the teacher's like, I want 500 words. You go over that, it's 1 letter grade.
Yeah.
And I had to, for example, that came in handy with Frege when I had to do the 27-word card descriptions for Black Flag. How can I say so much about each of these characters in 15 words?
Right.
That was a fun challenge.
And I think that it makes you kind of stretch your creativity, because you've got to find not necessarily straightforward ways to say something. You got to find like the not the first word that you would use or the first way that you would describe something. You got to find something that's going to be a little bit more encompassing of what you're trying to say. So it definitely makes it a lot more challenging and a lot more interesting, I think.
I'm not paying attention because I'm looking at the cat.
I know. The cat is so distracting in the best way.
Because she's all black, and I just love the fact that he has an all black cat. They're hard to get, black cats. Either have like a white spot, or they're never all black.
She's my little house panther. Yeah, she's my little house panther. This is Grace. Every time I sit down in this chair, whether I'm jumping on a stream or just using the computer, she's got to come jump in my lap and say hi.
You know what they say, that dogs have owners and cats have staffs.
Yeah, basically, it's cats. Yeah, cats will come to you when they want to. Otherwise, just make sure the food bowl is filled and the litter box is clean. Otherwise, you can go about your day, human.
She's looking up at you, and she's not. She's just going, "I own you, motherfucker."
Yeah. That's how cats do, man. You think you're the owner of the cat. That's not it.
Do you see this adorable face? I mean, how can I resist this adorable little face?
They always
Exactly.
They always want to come to you when you're sleeping, and they're like, "Hey, wake up!"
Look at the kitty. Look at the
Oh,
kitty.
she's so cute.
Oh my gosh. Oh, it waked. She waked.
I have a weakness for cats.
Oh, so cute. Okay.
Yeah,
Sorry,
she's my sweetheart.
I like how she was like gets up close and we're all gushing over her and she's like, "So," and you're like, "Oh,
Yeah, she's like, yeah. Oh yeah. You know, normally when people are around, like if I have anybody come over, she hides. She's super shy. So the fact that, however many people are watching just got to see her, yeah, she normally hides. She's very shy.
Oh, hold on. I have a thing for that. It was a Red Valkyrie exclusive, guys.
That's right.
So Grace will only appear on Red Valkyrie.
Yes.
Yep.
Love it.
Absolutely. She is an official Red Valkyrie. Little black
Yay!
Valkyrie.
Oh my gosh, if you ever get her a battle vest, I'll get those little patches made up.
Oh, that's totally
that's
happening
cool.
now. Yep,
But
that's
think
totally happening now.
When you put that stuff on cats, they tend to just lay on the ground and not want to get up when you put vests on them and stuff like that. Like they just
It
like,
depends
get
on
off.
the cat.
That's a leash. Yeah, it depends on the cat, but that's usually a leash. The last time I tried to put a cat on a leash, just thump, and then you're dragging a cat. Yeah.
If I do that with my dog and I put like her thunder jacket on and everything, she stands with her legs super straight and she just stares like this. She's like, "What do I do? What do I do?" And I was like, "You can walk." And she's like, "I don't know what to do. How do I walk? I forgot everything." And then I'll grab like a piece of cheese and she's like, "Oh, yeah, I'll come now."
Oh, okay. Reality reasserts itself. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, we have Frankenstein Elvis.
Yes. Hey.
This is Frankie.
Hi there, baby. What's
How
what's
are
going on?
Nothing much,
Yeah.
man. Nothing much, man. Nothing much.
Yeah. You,
My internet's all wonky and everything.
Gobble any brains today?
What's that?
Gobble any brains today, Zombie Elvis?
No, man. No. Just looking for some lightning. Just looking for some lightning.
Oh my god.
Bring the bride to life.
Holy shit.
Yeah, whatever happened to her?
I think she left.
Oh man.
She went with Preston.
Oh, he can keep her.
Yeah. Greener pastures, my friend. Yeah.
All right, where's that button? Bam.
There you go.
All right.
Hi, Frankie.
How are
Frankie.
What's up, guys?
What can you tell us about editing?
I don't edit anything. I just keep writing till it comes out good.
Okay.
You're doing it until it's good.
Actually, I fight my brother. I gotta edit. I have to condense stuff to put it in panels and stuff. And yeah, it's like it fits. It's like, no, it doesn't. Like, it'll fit. No, it doesn't. And we gotta like bang it out till it. I gotta like keep the essence of what I want to say in there, trim it down so it fits in the goddamn panel.
It's like, dude, it's like writing haiku with another person.
Yeah. Frank's like, it's always good. I'm Italian. It's always good.
That's right. Every word that comes out of my mouth is fucking poetry. Put it down, huh? Pay attention. Fuck.
Yeah, but see, this is what happens when you have two Italians that are working on a book together. Is one of them goes, "Well, I'm telling you, it's fucking shit," and you're like, "Oh, no, it isn't."
This is garbage. No, it's not. Yes, it is. No, it's like, hey, oh.
Oh, hey.
Sounds like an argument of a family fucking
What am I, half a fag?
Yeah.
Or something?
What?
Yep.
What?
It sounds like
I think that
an
glass is
argument
shoving your mouth
at
so you keep
a
talking.
family reunion for me, Oy.
I like when people make fun of Italians. It's not racist. It's funny.
I'm Northern Italian, so everyone else is scum to us.
Oh,
Northern Italian as well.
Yeah, I know. Put him up. Put him up. Put him up. Put him up.
So you know we say Southern Italian. Okay.
I got just as much Viking in me as I do Italian, so I don't care. You Northern and Southern can fight.
Oh, the Normans were doing a lot of raping in Italy, so it's okay. You know. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just Viking.
Wow.
Like even any Italian that was just Vikings.
Sicilians are mutts. We have everything. African blood. From Normandy, you have Normandy. Norman, you know, all.
Well, I mean, you're right there in the Mediterranean.
And we got everything in there.
You got Greek in there. You guys are all having a party down there.
I must have like 100 African cousins that live in Tunisia. and then I tell people I have African cousins. They're going, "Are they black?" I'm like, they live in Tunisia.
No, they're slightly bronzed.
They're African. I mean, that's who they are.
I knew I liked figs for a reason.
Goodness.
That's another thing. Pasta's not even, what was it? Oh no, citrus. Citrus is like one of the biggest things in Sicily and stuff like that. But I mean, it was brought by the Arabs. So same thing with pasta. Pasta wasn't there. That was brought there too.
Yep.
We're supposed to have like small
Tomatoes?
game and vegetables. That's it. That's basically what the traditional Sicilian diet's supposed to be.
No. Pasta wasn't brought until they went over to the Orient and discovered it from the Japanese.
Yeah.
Vegetables and vendettas are the diet.
Vegetables and vendettas.
Oh, they don't get anything. Vendetta.
Hey, the only person that can hold a grudge worse than an Italian is a Scotsman.
Oh my
hold
God.
that grudge for fucking ever.
Except you guys get
Scotsman
drunk and
knows
forget
what
where
I'm
you
talking
put it.
about.
I don't know.
Oh,
Middle
no,
East
we
has
never
been
forget
holding a
where we
grudge
put
for
our
how
name.
many?
Fuck you.
Well, what did they say? Is it the Scottish or the Irish that invented civilization? Had some Guinness and forgot where the fuck they put it.
Something like that. Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah.
Wait, is this like how Persians invented ice cream despite it being the desert and not having like milk and stuff?
What?
I mean, camel milk.
If you ever go onto like a list of what Persians invented, you have a bunch of legitimate things, and then they throw in stuff like they're like, we invented shoelaces, and you're like, you all wear sandals. When did you invent shoelaces? And they're like, we did it. Shut up.
With sandals with shoelaces. It's the hottest thing.
Are you ready? They invented calculus, but they didn't invent any of the math prior to calculus or anything after. They came up with calculus, apparently. I'm like, I don't think I'm buying your list of what you invented.
Are they doing the water boys? Like, I invented electricity. Ben Franklin is the Debo.
Yes, essentially. Yes. They're like, all of these other people, they just stole it from us. And you're like, when exactly, when you guys were making houses out of mud, did you invent calculus? Just out of curiosity.
Well, that's how they figured out the proper ratio to make, the mud for the houses and, planning it out and stuff like that. Totally, yeah. Makes sense, right?
Yeah. Makes sense. Ice cream in the middle of the desert.
Well, I mean, clearly they
Shoelaces on
created, refrigeration by making clay pot jar batteries and, getting a refrigeration unit up and running.
I kind of look at it like in a different way because I think if you live in the desert, you'd invent ice cream. I mean, that's the thing you would do.
It could, maybe ice.
How?
You don't have cow's milk. And they literally drag goat bodies around for a game. Like, they kill a goat and then drag its body around, and you try to get it from other guys on horseback and throw it into a goal to score a point. It is the most gruesome fucking sport, and they still play it.
I thought Sylvester Stallone made that up. I didn't know it was real.
No, it's real, and it's disgusting. It's super, super, super disturbing to watch.
Wait, what's that?
You live in a desolate land when?
Yeah, when you play with your corpse food like that. I don't understand.
Is it to tenderize it before they cook
No, they don't eat it after. They leave it out to rot.
That's
Have you seen this?
Literally the idea of it is You play until there's not enough of the body left.
That's it.
Wow. I mean, that's not really.
I mean, it's
barbaric at
real
all.
fucking brutal. Like people are running. You're on horseback, and people are like hitting each other with sticks and stuff to try and get you to drop the goat, so then they can scoop it up, and then they can go and score.
At what point do you decide that you don't want to pick the goat up because it's probably a bloody, awful, disgusting, smelly mess?
Well, they have like hooks, but it's also the Middle East. So.
That makes it better. Okay. I mean, I guess whatever you're gonna do for entertainment.
This is really on topic of editing.
Yeah, it's getting better and better.
A heavy edit. This episode needs a heavy edit.
Do you actually edit these after the fact?
No, I never do.
Oh yeah, I was wondering, like, because I want to go back and watch them if you are.
It's an object lesson for editing.
Basically, I'm silent the whole time. She cuts me out.
Well, it'd be like the people who watched it live can see what it turned into, and it ends up being a 5-minute video.
Tonight's topic: goat.
Episode 6: editing and goat polo.
Oh, it is essentially goat polo.
Greatest of all time.
Oh,
man.
wow. Jason, good timing. Great timing with the topic.
Pizza. Is that an Italian joke? I just wrote pizza. Is that an Italian joke?
Totally.
What is going on here?
Stand down, coming at you, Frankie.
Stand down. We love you here. It's okay.
Sicilians invented revenge.
Yeah. Vendetta.
Holy shit.
My middle name.
All right. So I asked the question earlier. What is the most poorly edited thing you have ever come across in fiction, like movies?
Yeah, guys. What do you think?
You know,
it's a really hard question.
Yeah,
it
really
is. Because I mean, there's some stuff you're like, yeah, this is not good, but is it because of the editing? Is it because the story's bad? You know, like
any movie over 3 hours long.
I think the
say
problem
any movie in the last 10 years.
I was gonna say the problem that I'm having answering your question, Luke, is the fact that when it's something that has a real bad issue with editing, I tend to block it out of my head.
Yeah, it's hard to read it when it does.
Oh,
yeah.
You know, because you can read something if it's at least well written. You just don't like it what the content is, and you can get through it. You know.
So, and granted, I can only speak for the first 5 pages, but the first 5 pages of A Tale of Two Cities is a fucking grind.
That might be due more to the way language has changed and way
potentially, but also
that's a dry read.
It is, and so I tried to read it because classic, and I wanted to have it under my belt to say, hey, I am cultured and read A Tale of Two Cities. And after the
audiobook
5th or 6th attempt of trying, I finally said, you know what? If it's this fucking hard for me to sit down and keep my attention, granted, I squirrel like a motherfucker, but if it's this hard for me to keep my attention, the story can't be that great. It just can't.
Try an audiobook. If you can get a skilled narrator, it will be a lot more entertaining.
Maybe. Also, what's being said in the first 5-ish pages is just not super interesting. It's a way to set a story by, I'm going to just diarrhea of the mouth at you an entire setting and tell you to just picture every aspect of this because it will all be relevant later. But you need to know every last bit of it right now.
Well, again, they used to write a lot more flowery back then than we do now.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying, as far as something that, if you're going to read it for a collegiate paper, if you're going to read it to dissect it and study a specific culture or a time period, cool, I get that. If you're going to read it for fun, it isn't a fun read.
Oh my God, why would you ever try to read that book for fun?
I did, because that's what I was trying to be cultured. I wanted to be cultured, and I apparently am uncultured swine, not worthy of reading A Tale of Two Cities, because I couldn't get through it.
That's hilarious.
I think the Lord of the Rings trilogy could have used about 2.5 hours worth of walking edited out of it.
Yeah, that is.
It was good.
You know, that's a good that you bring that up, because the Lord of the Rings book, The Fellowship of the Ring, the Council of Elrond is a tough hump to get over. You know, when you get to that one, like it's not that it's badly written, just it's long. You know, that whole scene where they get together to talk about what to do with the ring in the book. It's like 50 pages.
Oof.
Just that scene.
God damn. See,
And it's like, okay.
This is why I like audiobooks, because 50 pages just zips by because somebody's just reading it and I'm not paying attention to the pages. I'm just paying attention to the story. Like, I'm serious. Like, these books that are slogs, like, get the audiobook.
Mhm.
It will make it so much goddamn easier to get through it because you can just kind of listen and it just kind of washes over you. You know what I mean? Like, have you guys read Alan Moore's Jerusalem? It's a novel. That audiobook is 64 hours fucking long. And it's a good book. But it's like 4 large novels kind of woven together into this giant Gordian knot of a story. And I don't know that I'd actually be able to get through it had I not listened to an audiobook.
I don't think I would be able to get through it listening to an audiobook.
I think very few people have actually read it, to tell you the truth.
That would take
I've met
so long.
one other person that's actually read it. I just, I would throw it on while I'm, driving here, while I'm mowing the lawn, while I'm doing landscaping, while I'm patching a hole in a wall, doing the manual labor stuff that I do on a daily basis.
Even the Bible has that section, like the numbers. Like everyone says, I'm going to read the Bible this year, and when they get to numbers, is when they go, I can't go any further. Like numbers always stumps people, right? When they're reading
Start with the back first.
you guys know what I'm talking about, right?
Start with Revelation. It's a hell of a lot more fun to read.
All the begots. He begot.
Yeah, man.
He begot.
Yeah, numbers always gets every guy who says I'm going to read the Bible this year. It's like they get to numbers and it's like you got Genesis, whoa, and then you get Exodus, whoa, and then you get to numbers, and it's just like number, tribe does this, tribe does that. It's like everyone just stops there. That's what kills everybody when they're reading the Bible is when they get to numbers.
Honestly, I'm curious about the years before we saw, Jesus walking around committing his miracles and whatnot. Like what happened up until he was 30? Like what happened to the first 30 years of his life? Huh?
That's the Book of
Where
Thomas.
was he? What was he doing?
That's the Book of Thomas. It's not included in the Bible. I think it's Thomas.
Really? Because I've got a book called Jesus the Magician that talks about how he went over to India, and that's where we get the communion from. Vampire magic.
I saw on the History
This is
Channel.
my body. This is my blood.
Sounds
like cannibalism to me.
Oh gosh.
No, the History Channel showed one of these. They showed one of these excerpts from the Bible. It's not included in there. They don't put it as truth, but it's him as a teenager doing mischievous things. Him getting angry and stuff. He killed a kid and brought it up like that.
Really? Wonder why that was
I think it's
snipped
called
out.
The Book of St. Thomas. I think it's Thomas. I forgot. The History
Truth
Channel
is
was weird.
stranger than fiction, and the shit that they have hidden from us is much deeper than we know.
You can look it up on the internet. I think you could even read it. It's all like when he was a teenager, and he did a lot of bad things.
Hence the reason why it was probably snipped out. Not good for the narrative. Anyway, editing. That's what we're talking about, right? Editing the book.
Wow.
The Bible, they edited that out.
Listen, I warned you I was coming in here to cause trouble, Shae.
This is true. This is very true. Well, to be honest, there's a lot of stuff. Like, if we're gonna go into things that have been edited out to maintain a certain narrative, go and look at a lot of history books that are showing up in high schools, depending on kind of what version of certain books will usually be determined by what political party might be in power at the time, or whatever leanings certain instructors might have. Because I remember having multiple books that from year to year would contradict one another about pivotal events that happened within our nation, and bringing it up, you would have them go, well, the one that you had before, that was just inaccurate. And I was like, well, then how much of it was inaccurate if that's what you're trying to sell me on?
Or tremendously unbalanced.
Right. And then once you become an adult and you kind of look at all of these things, you get to go, oh, so when I'm looking up the people who wrote this version, they had very strong political leanings a certain way, and they chose to essentially almost abuse their responsibility as an author of history by making sure that they put such an emphasis on certain things and either minimized or completely omitted other aspects. And
History is always written by the winners.
And I remember in high school when we were doing World War II. I think it's like 10% World War II, 90% Holocaust. So you come away with it going, okay, there was a war and a bunch of Jews died.
Yeah.
Well, it was a war about the Holocaust, and it was a war about a lot more things, and that was just like the standout atrocity from this.
That was the universal atrocity. That was the one that the most people agree was just an abysmal thing. And so that's what they focus on the most. But when you start looking at, there was a lot that was going on.
Yeah.
Well, now a lot of the colleges
have a lot of things that triggered that whole scenario over there. What were we saying, Jerry?
A lot of colleges have these ebooks that are coming into popularity in the classrooms, and the professors can actively edit out or change the book according to their syllabus and what they want to teach.
And they do.
And they do.
If we edit out the things that we don't like about history, how the fuck are we supposed to learn from those mistakes? Those that do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Is that not the case? If we edit out those mistakes, how are we supposed to learn from them?
And the thing that I think is really interesting is that if you start looking at a lot of the editing of narratives and stuff that's been going on over the past decade, even, right?
Sure.
We're starting to see history repeat itself much sooner than it used to. It used to be many decades before something would come back. It used to be 30, 40, 50 years before we start to see, fashion trends come back, or we start to see particular thoughts and ideas start to come back. And now in the past 10 years, we've gone from this might be a good idea, this is a terrible idea. No, wait, this might be a good idea. And we're like, we just did that. Like, I'm not even old enough to have forgotten that it happened. Like, just because there's another generation that was born in there, that doesn't mean it didn't happen. Most of you were alive the first time we tried this. Why are we trying it again? It didn't work then. It's not going to work now. And they try it like they just weren't passionate enough about it. And so they try it with more fervor and it fails more miserably than it did the first time. And you're just like, why can we not learn about this? It's because you don't want to talk about it. But if you don't talk about it, we just keep making those same kinds of mistakes.
No. Well, it's also that thought of and growing up, you always think, well, the older generation couldn't do that. Well, I can do this because I'm fucking smart. I'm invincible. I'm younger. I'm hip. I can do this shit. And it's I don't know if the younger generation, and I remember older people telling me this when I was younger. If you could just learn from others' mistakes, so you can make different ones and move society along, but we all keep making the same fucking mistakes, so we don't go anywhere. Like, there's gotta be a tipping point. There's gotta be a change.
Well, and I wonder how much of this, and this kind of goes back to like when you're writing and stuff too for editing, how much of making these same kinds of errors and these same kinds of mistakes comes from a lack of communication.
57%.
I mentioned my friend who published her own book on Amazon. She published books 2 and 3. I never went and told her how many fucking errors there were in book 1 because I didn't want to crush her little hopes and dreams.
Right.
But if I am to remember this correctly, I think that book 2 was just as bad as book 1 as far as all of the corrections and the errors that were in it. And I got that,
by the way, of the book.
Sorry, what?
Did she do well, or no? Did the sales do well of the book?
No.
Okay.
No, basically friends and family, because she's a nobody author, and her book was really teen focused. So she was trying to break into a very highly saturated, like, section.
So she was trying to get into the young adult market.
Yes.
Oh my God! Why?
And she was trying to get into the young adult market with a book that had a girl who was a witch.
Oh, you're not gonna do well there.
And I was like,
how original?
It's like four. Yeah, right. How original? Yeah.
How original?
Holy
yeah, and
shit.
Yeah, you better be good. You better be a standout to stand out. You know.
Yeah, and it like I tried reading it. I read it once for fun, and I got through it. And then when she was like, "Could you give me critiques?" and I started reading it with an editor's hat on, I got through 3 pages and was like, or 3 chapters. I was like, I can't.
You got to pay me for this. Sorry.
Yeah, I was about to send her book back to her, bled all over, because I was about to just be like, well, let me go through every time you misspell something, and every time that you have too many spaces, and every time you say something that contradicts something you said 4 pages ago. And I was like, I would have to color code these. It would take me probably a month to get through it all, and then I would send it back to you and just crush you. And I don't want to crush you. And I don't think that you're ready to hear this kind of feedback. So
yeah, and it does take a certain amount of maturity to take editing, right? So if somebody's not going to be receptive to it, there's no point in wasting your valuable time, because it takes a lot of time to edit a novel.
It does.
A lot of time. Yeah. And to come up with a constructive feedback, and the person's just going to go, thanks, and turn it back on you, then they might as well have paid you for it, you know?
Right. Well, and she, at one point, she was like, well, maybe I could pay you to be my editor. And I was like, I don't know that I want to ruin the friendship, because I don't think that it would last. Like, we could work professionally together, or we could be friends. Like, those are the 2 options, because I'd have to come at her hard.
It's a tough market. There's so much competition in that. Kids' books as well. I mean, I learned that too. They have little age groups. There's age groups, but it doesn't matter. I mean, if you're going really young, you might as well have a really good artist to help sell the book. But I went that route, and it's worse than comics. It's so competitive.
Yeah, it's brutal.
Yeah, young adult. I went to Books A Million, and they got like 2 rows just on young adult fiction.
I mean, if you can hit the right target, it's a gold mine. But it's competitive.
Yeah, it's got to be something really special to like take off.
It's got to be something that hooks the imagination of spazzy fucking preteens and teens,
like R.L. Stein kind of thing.
Well, yeah, sure. R.L. Stein, it's got to be snappy, it's got to be punchy, it's got to, keep the story moving along to keep their interest, or they've just got to, be really into what you're talking about. Like,
I do remember that guy.
Stein was horror.
He was ubiquitous for a minute, R.L. Stein. When I was a kid, he was everywhere. Everyone was reading those books.
Well, I mean, Goosebumps, was the book series, and then it became a TV series. He actually wrote a couple of novels. He actually the movies. They actually made. He actually did a book for adults. It's called Red Rain, and it's not bad. It's not quite as much of an adult novel as I would have hoped, because you can feel like a lot of it is. It feels like he's been writing YA for way too long, and there's no way to kind of get out of that since he's been doing it for so long.
Yeah.
But decent story overall.
I think Goosebumps got a big boost from like school book fairs and Scholastic, things like that.
I remember book fairs; those were fun.
I remember the catalogs.
Oh, I used to love
newsprint catalogs.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, because
they deliver your books into the class, and you get the big stack of books for in class.
I remember getting the catalog, and then they were like, next week we're having the book fair. And so you look at the catalog and you're like, I want this one, I want this one, I want this one. You go to your parents and they go, we're going to give you $10. And you're like, whoa, I can't buy all of them.
I had to have the catalog because I had to have time to beg. or do chores or something, because they'd always make me do something.
Then there was the chocolate sales where you could never get the Super Nintendo. You always got the stupid, you could never sell enough to get the Super Nintendo.
course not.
I always got like the shitty like clapper toys and shit like that, and I was like, this is worse than Chuck E. Cheese, man.
Yeah, that just sold
Chuck E.
like
Cheese,
whole
I can at least
crates
get a
of this.
bouncy ball.
Yeah, you sell the whole
Legit.
warehouse, and you didn't even get the bike.
Let me tell you what I did with the chocolate sale. All right, so they gave these boxes of chocolate bars. There's 30 in a box. I lived in an apartment complex, so I said, if I sold these for $2 a bar instead of $1 a bar, I'd make $30. Well, my stepmom come up to the school and got a box because she didn't want me to ride home on the bus with it, but my teacher gave me a box also. So I was checked out with one box. They thought I had one box. So I wound up making $90 off these candy bars.
That's impressive.
Yep.
He takes it out. She's like, I'm gonna buy my own damn bike. Damn it!
Or if your mom works at like a law firm and you give her the box and she takes it there,
I used to give it to my mom and my dad. My dad worked in a loading dock with a bunch of people. Like all he ever did was talk about me. And since I was a cute little girl, everybody bought from him.
and all those dudes want to like give you the money. They're like just heaping it on you.
Yeah,
and then
I'll tell you, dudes don't give a shit about you when you're a little boy. Yeah.
No, they don't.
Yeah. If you're a little girl and they like help my little girl, they're just gonna heap it on you.
Oh yeah. And then my mom took it to the. My mom took it to the clinic, and I used to visit the clinic all the time. And so everyone was like, "Oh, is this for your little girl? Oh, I'll buy 3 of them." And it's like,
here's a little
I'm
tip
also
for
selling wrapping paper, and I'm also selling. They were just like, "I'll buy everything, sweetheart." And here's an extra 5. I'm like, "Okay, thank you."
No. Fucking Sisyphus pushing that boulder up a goddamn mountain with this shit, trying to sell it as a
because
boy.
at like 10, you look like you were 30 with that height, dude. That's why you're like, you're not really in grade school. Bullshit.
They were like, we're starting to get suspicious. Well, so that was the thing, is it worked really well. It worked really, really well when I was like 7. When I was like 10, my mom legit looked at me and she goes, "I am not taking that into work." And I'm like, "Mom, I have to sell them for whatever." Like when I turned 15 and I had to actually sell shit so I could get my uniform for volleyball, and she was like, "I don't know what you're gonna do, but I'm gonna take it into work." And I was like, "The hell?" Like she goes, "I don't know, I guess get a job." I was like, "I'm 15." It's like, what the fuck? So I just started, like, I went around my neighborhood and everyone was like, well, I started taking my niece with me and people started buying again. I was like, there we go. It's the little girls. So you get the little girl to go.
Yep. Gotta have the little pretty face, the pouty eyes to get the heartstrings.
Oh, and she had beautiful little blonde hair, so we'd put it in little pigtails and she'd wear a little white dress, and I'd be like, "You want to come with Aunt and go sell stuff?" And she's like, "Okay," and she'd come running up, and I'd be like, "Ring the doorbell, ask them if they want to buy anything." They're like, "Oh, are you selling?" She's like, "Yes."
Listen,
get my niece, and they were just like, "Okay."
Seeing eye dog.
We must deal with what is, not what we want to be. Reality is fucking savage, okay?
Well, the best part is if we went to a neighborhood that didn't know me, they were like, "Oh, is mommy taking you around?" And I was like, "The fuck? I'm like in high school. What the shit?" "Yeah, sure, Mom." It's like, you think I got busy at like 10? What's wrong with you?
So I worked at a sign shop on Main Street, and what would happen was all the kids would get their fundraiser stuff at the same time. So you would have a week where kids were coming up in the shop just one after the other and after the other. And, like that first 4 or 5 kids, you're like, you feel obligated. All right, I'm going to buy, this and this and this. But after about 30 of them, you're like, these old demon kids keep coming from everywhere. You just can't. But they're...
Oh, I'm heartless. I always get the kids that try to stop me on the way, and they go, "Well, if you go through the checkout and then you just ask for cash back, then you could totally get something." And I was like, "You know what else I could do? I could go to my car and go home." And they're just like, "You don't want to help our troop get new sashes?" "Nope, I sure don't. You guys figure that shit out. Go to Joann's, make your own. Yeah. Enjoy yourselves."
I always have cookie gangsters in front of my store.
Nobody talks to me when I'm walking into a store. I don't know why.
Oh, they stopped too. Like it's so funny. I watched a dad who had like his son and a couple of his son's like teammates for Little League, and his son was like, Dad, can you ask the girl? And he goes, this is your team. You want the money, you go ask her. And he looked at me and I looked over at him and I stopped for a second and he was like, no, never mind. I was like, oh, so I went in and that was the one time that I went in, I came back out and I was like, here's $10. And he's like, you want to buy for the raffle? I was like, don't care.
Crusher of dreams, destroyer of hope.
I just saw, like, he looked so sad where he's like, she's so big. And I was
the word is crestfallen. He was crestfallen.
He
You
was,
destroyed
poor
him.
child.
Mm-hmm.
And I gave him just a little bit, and then the next time I saw him, he's like, "Hi, do you?" No, I already did it once. Did it the one time. You got me once. Go away, child.
Uh-huh.
Hoy vey. Well, we have been going for just over 2 hours, and after getting off topic probably the third or fourth time, we're probably done about editing.
I mean, it's kind of a subject that's a little bit, not very open-ended, right? You can only say so much about editing.
That is very true. That is very, very true. Well, I do think that we covered some pretty good points, though, when it comes to editing. Does anybody have any final things that they kind of want to throw out there?
Good editing can save a bad book. Bad editing can completely fuck a good book.
That is insanely true.
Don't use relatives to proofread your book.
I feel like you're talking from experience.
There's subtext here that I'm picking up on. Come on, tell us more, Freddie.
Too many vowels into that word. Forget about
it.
I'll tell him, Vinny.
I know it's hackneyed, but I think less is always more. Honestly.
Yeah.
I think you use somebody other than yourself. Make sure you have somebody else look over your work because you're not perfect.
Yeah, you need fresh eyes because I've had a misspelling in one of the issues, but it was a typo because we had to rewrite it when we were doing the comic book on the computer. So you read it so fast, you know it's the word the, but it's an extra H, or you know what I mean? Like a little thing like that. Because you've read it so many times.
Yeah.
You're going to miss that misspelled word. As little as it is, you're going to miss it. You need
That's why I read it
eyes.
out loud. That's why I read it out loud.
No, but
everything. Read it out loud.
I've done it. The thing is, it's that word. You know what it is, but the letters are reversed. You'll still read it.
Reading out loud will help you catch that.
Sometimes we missed it on the floppies. Yeah, it printed on one of the floppies we had before we did Through the Woods. That's why the book's re-edited and we caught everything. Thank God. But
shit, I got lucky then because every time I've read it out loud, I always catch like the extra E or the extra H or like the T that's not supposed to be. I'm like, how am I? Wait a minute, that's not supposed to be there. Shit. Yeah.
I think I'm a lot like Frankie because I know what the words are, so my brain sees what it wants to see, not what's actually on the paper.
Well, and they've got that whole thing, like psychologically speaking, if the first and the last letter are
that's
correct, that you fill in the in between most of the time when we read. Because when you read, you're not actually reading every single character, every single word on a page. Your brain is filling in a lot of gaps, and so like the amount of times that I type the and I'll type it TEH because of the way that my fingers just hit. So it's to the point now where it's actually a joke and it's something that's in my vernacular because I type it so much. So I ended up just starting to adopt it. So it wasn't always a typo. So I'm like, yeah, I got to go to the store. And they're like, what? And I was like, did you mean the? And I was like, no, I meant te. Like te. A little breathy.
It's in my dictionary now, Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with both Frankie and Luke. Like when I'm trying to catch my own mistakes, I'll read it out loud. But after I've gone through it, after I've read it, and I feel like I've got it good and where I think it's supposed to be, I'll send it to somebody like Will, which I'm still terrified to send something to. But I'll send something to Will and have him just tear it to shreds, and then I'll go back and cry a little and maybe drink some bourbon, and then try for take 2 or take 3 or take 500, depending on how brutal he is.
He's not that scary.
And if you do edit, do it fresh in the morning. Don't do it late at night. You're going.
We talked about that. Sleep on it.
Yeah. You're gonna
get some distance from it. Walk away from it. Put it away for a little bit.
I think that it's important. I think go have a shower, go have a run. You know, whatever your deadline allows, give yourself
Freshen
as
up.
much buffer from finishing to editing.
Yeah, look at it fresh.
Yeah, well, and I would say, so I understand writing in the morning when you're awake and everything. We've said that on previous streams. For somebody like me, I have to write when I'm like in that kind of creative space, to include editing. So
Right.
writing in the morning doesn't work for me. That's actually when I'm the most groggy and most likely to make mistakes. But you need to find when your fresh time is, and that's when you need to be writing and editing.
Right.
So for me, it's oddly enough, as long as I've gotten decent sleep in nights previous, it's about 10 or 11 at night, which is one of the reasons that we do this stream at 10 p.m. on a Sunday, is because it's when I'm a little bit more tuned to being creative. And it's also a time that isn't going to conflict with all of the other shit that we do. So, well, I wanted to say thank you guys so much for coming out. We've had a really great panel. I will go back and edit the video after we've closed and YouTube uploads it to put all of our panel in that we've had. We've had a couple of people come in and drop out, so we'll put everybody in there and whatever projects they're working on if they've got them up. But thank you guys so much for coming out. You guys are amazing. Thank you to the chat. You guys are also super stellar.
Hail the motherfucking chat.
Absolutely, man.
Hail chat.
Hail chat.
Love you guys. And please do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to Red Valkyrie. We are ever marching closer to our 1K, and it is so exciting. Hoping that we can hit it very, very soon. But thank you guys so much for coming out, and we will catch you next time on Writing Prose.
Good night,
See you
guys.
later.
Night.